She's yours now." That's all I said. Steady voice, no anger, no tremble, just the sound of a man finally done. The room cracked open with silence. Music died mid-beat. Laughter turned to still air. Her smile, that perfect practice smile, shattered like glass hitting tile. He stood there, Ryan Brooks, designer shirt, 2 bottles of Napa wine clutched like trophies, suddenly unsure which one of us had just lost. I didn't blink. I didn't flinch. My hand stayed on his a second too long, enough for him to feel what dignity feels like when it finally stops forgiving. Behind me, 30 faces stared, caught between shock and respect. I turned, took my jacket, and left without another word. No shouting, no scene, just peace. Earned the hard way. Think that was cold? Hit subscribe. You haven't heard why I walked out that door. Yet. Name's Jack. 45. HVAC. I make hot rooms breathe again. Compressors, belts, blower motors. If it whines, rattles, or quits, I crawl in after it. My back tells the truth at night. A pop when I bend, a burn that rides the spine. Ice pack, 2 Advil, lights out. Up again at 6. That's the trade. The new place is bare bones, month to month. A sofa that sags like it knows my weight. Coffee table's a stained crate. Mattress on a frame I tightened with leftover screws from a condenser fan. No style points, but every inch is mine. Dallas heat sits on you like a wet towel. Step outside and the air grips your shirt. I work in it, wipe my neck, keep moving. The sounds I trust are simple. Relays clicking, fans settling, that soft hush when the cold finally wins. When I cut the truck engine at midnight and the street goes still, the quiet feels clean, honest. Nothing to sell me, nothing to prove. So I held on to silence, let the noise burn itself out while I saved my breath. A man can live a long time that way. Head down, bills paid, hands steady, hands. It isn't weakness. It's a shield. And it worked. Right up until the night Mature came home wearing perfume and a smile, and the quiet I loved turned on me like a blade. Melissa could sell rain to the ocean. Marketing voice, warm eyes, sharp timing. She loved that word, mature. Rolled it slow, like it meant she was taller than the room. Be mature, Jack. This is modern. Don't be insecure. The therapy talk didn't heal. It hurted. If I bristled, I proved her point. Then there was Ryan, polished and loud without raising his voice. Mirror white teeth, a watch that flashed every time he moved. He floated through our days without being there at all. Dinner? Ryan loved this place. County fair? Ryan always found the best tacos. A song in Target? That's our song. Not mine. The ghost kept a key. Comparison rarely shouts. It hums. A smile that tilts past you. A text that steals the room for 2 beats. A story that only lands if another man's shadow sits at your table. I felt it like pressure in a sealed line, building slow, waiting on a crack. So I stacked quiet wins, fixed what was broken, paid what was due, kept my spine in my mouth, told myself that men don't need to win every fight, they need to outlast the noise. But math runs out. One Thursday, the front door slammed hard enough to rattle the frames. She stood there, arms crossed, chin high, eyes rehearsed. "We need to talk about Saturday," she said. And just like that, the ghost took a seat, and my silence finally met its limit. Thursday night, front door slammed hard enough to shake the frames. I slid out from under the kitchen sink, hands black with pipe grease, and found her already staged for battle, arms crossed, chin high, eyes bright like she'd practiced this in a mirror. "Ryan's coming to the housewarming," she said. No hello, just the verdict. "Be mature about it." I wiped my hands on a rag. "That's so. It's normal. We're adults. If you can't handle it, that's insecurity." The therapy words came smooth and stainless, like tools she didn't earn. "Don't make this a thing, Jack. Don't embarrass us." There it was, the double standard with a bow on it. She crossed a line, and my reaction would be the crime. Her tone turned managerial, like I was an employee late for a meeting about my attitude. "I need you calm, supportive. Say you can do that." I folded the rag, set it down square. The apartment smelled like lemon cleaner and something colder. She'd already decided who the problem was, and it wasn't the man bringing 2 bottles and old history to our front door. I met her eyes and gave her the only answer that wouldn't waste breath. You want mature? I stood up slow, back popping like a truth I couldn't hide. You'll get mature. She smiled then, small, satisfied, like she'd won. She didn't notice the way I looked past her, past Saturday, past the party, already measuring exits in my head. I texted Dalton. That spare room still open? He answered in seconds. Always. You good? We'll be by Saturday. Paper first. Always paper. I pulled my file box from the closet. Passport, birth certificate, technician's license, the title on my truck, the little things men forget until they cost big. Joint account got next month's rent, clean and documented. My savings moved where hands couldn't reach. Not hiding, just final. Then the list. Keep it brutal and short. Laptop, hard drive with family photos, the socket set I bought with overtime, a week of clothes, work boots that fit like truth. Everything else could stay and rot into whoever she wanted to be. I opened the top drawer and wrapped my grandfather's watch in a shop towel, slid it into my pocket. It ticked like a calm heart. That sound steadied my hands. My phone buzzed. Melissa, bubbling about playlists and wings and people are so excited. She stapled the word mature on every message like it could hold the house together. I kept my replies flat. Got it. Sounds fine. Nothing she could weaponize. Nothing I'd regret reading twice. Countdown started without a clock. Each hour a bolt tightened, a door quietly unlocked. I moved small things to the truck, a shirt here, a folder there, never enough to raise dust. By the time Saturday rolled in, the only thing left to pack was my silence, and she'd told me to bring that. But what she didn't know is that every silence I gave her had an expiration date. Friday lunch hour, I parked 3 blocks from the branch and walked the rest. No hurry, no shadow. Inside, the air smelled like paper and coins. I moved my money like a man stacking bricks. Steady, square, final. Joint account got my share of next month's rent. Memo line clear as daylight. June, Jack. No questions, no wiggle. My savings went elsewhere, locked behind new numbers and a password nobody could guess, not even the old me. Close the loops, tie the knots. Not hiding, just done. I kept the balance sheet simple. What I owe is paid. What I've earned is mine. The teller slid a receipt across the counter. I held it the way you hold a boarding pass. Thin, nothing, and somehow the whole plan. Outside, the sun laid a hot hand on my neck, but my shoulders felt lighter. The math was clean. The exit would be too. Back in the truck, I filed the slips in a manila envelope with the rest. Title, license, copies. Order has a sound. Paper tapping square, tape tearing straight. I sat for a minute and listened to that small, boring music of closure. This is what mature looks like when it isn't for show. You leave what you owe, and you take what you are. I turned the key, checked my mirrors, and drove home to finish the part nobody would notice. Until it was too late. Party prep, like nothing's wrong. She texted links to decorations. I bought what was on the screen. String lights, paper banners, plastic cups the color of someone else's idea of fun. I carried it in, set it down, opened boxes with a pocket knife I've had since I was 19. I climbed a chair and ran lights along the molding, snug and straight. Tested the outlet with a quick click. Steady glow. She clapped once. Little happy sound. See? You get it. You're so mature. I nodded, mouth a clean line. Mature's easy when you stop arguing with gravity. I laid the tablecloth, smoothed it flat with my palms, lined up napkins by the stack, stocked the fridge, beer labels facing forward like soldiers, her favorite Prosecco on the top shelf where she'd see it first. She said it looked perfect. I said good. The word tasted like chalk. There's a quiet kind of comedy in setting the stage for your own exit. You tape the corners, you check the bulbs, you make sure the door swings easy, then you walk through it and don't come back. I kept my breathing slow, my hands busy, my pockets light. She twirled once under the lights and asked if I was excited. Sure, I said, and tightened one last screw on the bracket near the door. It held fast, like it was built to. So was I. She floated through the living room like a weather report for good news. "Ryan's bringing something special," she said, grin bright. "A rare Napa cab. He knows wine." I said, "Sure," the way you say it when you don't care about grapes or the man holding them. Her friends circled, soft praise with sharp edges. "You're so mature, Jack. Most men would be jealous." I kept my face smooth, just trying to keep it friendly. The line landed flat on purpose, no hook to grab, nothing to argue with. Across the room, Hector watched me over the rim of his beer, eyes that knew the weight of a man's choices. He didn't speak, didn't need to. Some friends ask with a look if you're still steering the truck or if you've let go of the wheel. My phone buzzed in my pocket. "Dalton. Ready?" One word, steady as a stud in a wall. I slid the phone away and stocked another row of bottles, labels out, cold air licking my knuckles. The room had that party sound, thin laughter, glass tapping, playlists that try too hard. Every sentence bounced off me like rain on a roof. I let it fall, let the praise pile up until it felt like weight on the chest. I measured the door, the distance, the next move. People love a man who swallows fire with a smile. They never ask what it costs to keep the flame down. When she showered, I moved quiet. Laptop into the gym bag, charger coiled tight. The hard drive with family photos, my grandfather crouched by a river, my dad in a dog-eared baseball cap, wrapped in a t-shirt and slid between sneakers. Opened the truck, lifted the back seat, tucked paperwork where a thief wouldn't bother. Passport, license, titles, copies, clean as a ledger. Back inside, I sat like I'd never moved. TV on low, news anchor talking about heat and traffic. Steam rolled from the bathroom, sweet shampoo and the kind of calm that comes before mistakes feel expensive. She called from the doorway, towel around her. "What are you wearing tomorrow? The navy button-down? We'll look good together." We. That word hit like a dull bell, familiar, heavy, already cracked. I said, "Navy's fine," and took a sip of water to wash the grit out of my voice. She smiled and disappeared into the closet, humming a song that didn't belong to us. I checked the time, checked the bags, checked the small things men forget, the spare keys, the old watch ticking soft in my pocket. Everything sat where it should, ready to move when a moment turned. She came out in a robe, spun once under the living room lights I'd strung, and asked if I was excited. I said, "Sure." The word felt like tape over a leak. By morning, "we" would still be printed on the invitations. It just wouldn't live in the house anymore. Everything was packed but the part she still owned, and I was about to take that back too. Saturday woke up nervous. She moved room to room like a small storm, fluffing pillows that didn't need it, counting plates that were already enough. "Ice and beer," she said, not looking up. "Get extra." I grabbed my keys, felt the watch in my pocket tick steady, and stepped into the Dallas heat. The store buzzed like a hive, kids begging for chips, carts squeaking, a radio arguing with itself about summer deals. I filled the cart, 2 big bags of ice, a case of long necks, a few extras for the boys who'd actually drink them. The cashier, an older lady with kind eyes, asked how the weather was out there like she hadn't seen it in years. "Hot enough to bend metal," I said, smiling just enough to pass. She laughed, rang me up, handed me the change like a secret. In the parking lot, the asphalt shimmered. I loaded the truck slow, checked the straps, breathed. I ran the steps again in my head, money moved, papers stowed, bags staged, Dalton ready, door, greeting, line, exit. Each point clicked in like teeth on a gear. Back in the cab, the city hummed, sirens somewhere far, a bus wheezing, horns testing patience. It all sounded busy, urgent, important. I sat inside it and felt none of it touch me, like I was already standing on the other side of something, watching the noise pass by. I turned the key and drove home to finish the quiet work only I could hear. By noon, the place looked like a magazine page you'd never live in. Tapas laid out bright and pretty, wings keeping warm, bowls of olives sweating under the lights. The string lights I'd run glowed a soft yellow, smooth as a lie you want to believe. She checked the mirror again, then again, lipstick, hair, that smile she keeps for guests. I worked the fridge, Beer-lined military straight, labels forward, necks frosted. I set her favorite sparkling at eye level where she'd see it first and feel understood. The ice buckets got topped off. The opener lay where a man could find it without asking. Order relaxes people. It keeps them from noticing the draft coming through the door. She drifted by and watched my hands. "You're different," she said, soft but sharp. "Too calm." I closed the fridge, let the seal pull tight. "You wanted calm," I said. "Here it is." She studied my face like a map with one road missing. "Don't make today a thing, Jack. It's just grown-up stuff." I shrugged once, the kind that doesn't lift the shoulders. "Grown-up," I said, like I was testing a new wrench in my hand. "Got it." She went back to the mirror, practicing small talk with a stranger who looked like her. I wiped the counter, straightened a stack of plates, and listened to the lights hum. Somewhere inside that sound, a clock started. Doorbell after doorbell. Her coworkers came first, heels on wood, bright voices, perfume that tried too hard. They handed her candles and said the place looked curated, like we'd built a life for a catalog. Then the gym crowd arrived in dry fit and new smiles, all handshake and protein breath, already talking about a run tomorrow they wouldn't take. Hector and Landon showed up with a case of something cold and the kind of eyes that ask the real questions. Hector squeezed my shoulder once, no words, message received. Landon hooked a finger at me, pulled me by the pantry. "Feels like her party," he muttered. I said, "It is." Nothing bitter, just a measurement. Music found a rhythm nobody believed. Small talk stacked up like paper plates. I made circuits. Ice, bottles, trash. Unseen, like ductwork that makes a house livable. She floated room to room, every laugh tuned, every touch on a forearm just long enough to register. Landon leaned close again, voice low. "Stay here. Don't drink stupid. You'll want your head clear." He held my gaze an extra beat. "Show's coming." I nodded once, like tightening one last bolt on a unit I knew by heart. Across the room, someone set a bottle opener exactly where I'd left it. The door breathed as another guest arrived. Every light in that place ran warm. Every eye felt wired into the same switch. And somewhere behind the noise, I could hear the hinge of a moment about to turn. Compliments came prepackaged. "You two are such a modern couple. It's healthy, you know, staying friends with exes." I smiled the way a man smiles when he's not buying the warranty. Changed the subject to the brisket, the game, anything with a scoreboard. Paige watched me over the rim of her glass. Quiet, not fishing. She'd seen enough rooms to recognize when one hums off key. "You good, Jack?" she asked, simple as that. "Good," I said, and let the word land flat. No handle, no hook. A guy from the gym said something about emotional intelligence, like it was a badge. Another chimed in that jealousy is just insecurity. Their voices had that soft, smug edge, the kind that forgives anything as long as it's dressed up right. I found the beer in my hand and felt the label under my thumb, rough where it tore. My fingers tightened around the neck, one slow turn past comfort, then I let go. Set it down easy. The table didn't move. Paige clocked the choice. Her mouth made a small line. Respect, not pity. I kept my air steady, kept my words few. There's power in not giving people a scene to argue with. You take away the smoke, all they're left with is the fire they lit. Across the room, she laughed at something I didn't hear. Someone said Ryan's name like a secret getting brave. The music dropped a beat, then caught itself. I rolled my shoulders once and listened to the lights hum. Restraint isn't surrender. Sometimes it's the weight you lift before you throw the whole room quiet. They thought the calm meant forgiveness. They were wrong. 4:50 on the kitchen clock. The second hand ticked like a nail tapping glass. 4:55. Music slid lower, like it knew what was coming. She checked her phone, screen glow on her face, thumbs restless. 4:57. She fixed a strand of hair, glanced at the mirror, smoothed her dress the way people smooth a lie. The room carried that pre-storm hush. Voices dulled, laughter thinned, even the ice settled. She stood by the hallway, eyes bouncing door mirror phone door, waiting for a past she'd invited to walk through my present. I watched the clock once more, felt my pulse match the ticks, then stepped. Half a beat before she moved, I crossed the floor. Not rushed, not slow, just certain. She blinked like I'd missed my mark, like this was her cue and I'd taken it. I felt the grain of the wood under my palm as I reached the entry table, keys where I'd left them, opener where a guest could find it, the ridge of the runner catching under my boot. The house breathed, warm lights humming, the whole place leaning toward the front like a crowd at a fence. Her perfume caught up to me. "Jack," she said, soft, warning or plea, I couldn't tell. I didn't look back. I put my hand on the doorknob and let the metal cool my skin. The clock hit 5. Ding. I turned the knob and opened the door. Ryan stood there like an ad in a magazine, shirt pressed, grin easy, 2 dark bottles pitched forward in his hands. The glass clinked when he shifted, a polite sound that didn't match the weight in the hallway. "Jack," he said, offering the smile and the handshake together. I took his hand and held it. Not a squeeze to show off, just long enough for him to feel there was no room left in me for pretending. Behind us, the party paused on one breath. Music stalled. A laugh died midair. She stood just inside my shoulder, close enough that I could hear the rise and fall of someone who'd trained for a moment and didn't see this part in the script. Ryan's smile wobbled once, then steadied, like he'd regained his lines. The bottles shook a fraction, necks tapping each other. I looked him in the eye and let the noise drop out of the world. "She's yours now," I said. No heat, no wobble, just a clean cut. Silence hit the room like a switch. His hand was still in mine, suddenly light. Her smile cracked, then vanished. Somewhere, a cube of ice broke in a bucket. I let go, set my jacket on my shoulder, and stepped past him into the evening air. Inside, the party stayed posed, frozen between music and truth, while the door swung easy on well-oiled hinges. The music hiccuped, then stopped like someone pulled the plug. The room pulled one breath and held it. Melissa didn't move. That practiced smile just dropped, like a mask with a broken strap. Ryan's face set hard. No smart line, no rescue. The bottles in his hand tapped once, small and nervous. I slid my jacket up onto my shoulder. Not a flourish, just a man getting off a shift. 30 faces were turned the same way, like the lights had swung and pinned me center stage. Funny thing about a spotlight, it doesn't make you bigger. It just makes everyone else honest. "Thank you all for coming," I said into the quiet, calm as a service call completed. "Enjoy the party." The words landed heavy and clean. Somewhere in back, a spoon hit a plate and stayed. Hector's phone hung midair, recording or not, it didn't matter. Paige didn't blink. Landon's jaw worked once and stopped. Melissa tried a breath that didn't go anywhere. "Jack." Just my name, thin as thread. Ryan shifted his weight as if there were rules, as if someone was going to explain what to do next. Nobody did. Nobody could. I looked past them at the hall table, at the door I'd already measured in my head a dozen times. The house hummed. Wires, lights, nerves, waiting on the next move. I made it. I stepped to the entry table and set a white envelope down where anyone could see it. Her name, the month, the amount, ink plain as a contract. Next to it, I laid the house keys, teeth shining under the lamp. No slam, no speech. Just proof that leaving can be cleaner than staying. No one said a word. Not a cough, not a joke. The kind of quiet you only hear when the truth takes up all the air. I straightened the envelope with 2 fingers, squared it to the edge. Order matters. It tells the story for you. I opened the door a hand's width, felt night air touch the heat behind me. Turned once, not for drama, for record. "You wanted maturity," I said to the room, to the mirror, to the whole idea we'd been selling. "This is it." Melissa's lips parted, nothing behind them. Ryan took half a step back like the porch had a drop he hadn't planned for. A guest near the kitchen swallowed loud enough to count. I eased the door wider. Hinges whispered like they'd been oiled for this moment. One more look at the keys, the envelope, the life arranged and finished. Then I pulled the door to, firm and final. It didn't bang. It didn't beg. It just clicked, clean as a verdict. But leaving isn't the end. It's the start of the quiet every man has to earn. The door clicked behind me, and the hallway took the sound, swallowed it whole. Carpeted quiet. A soft hum from the building's lungs. I started walking. No rush. Boots sure on the runner, jacket hanging off one finger. Mrs. Grant from 3B stepped out with her trash, saw my face, and eased back like she'd opened the wrong door. A couple from 4C came around the corner, laughter dying as they slid to the wall and let me pass. Not afraid, just respectful, the way folks step aside when a flag goes by. I kept my back straight, felt the weight lift from it inch by inch, as if someone had taken a hand off my shoulders. The air was cooler out here, honest and unperfumed. My breath fell into a clean rhythm I hadn't heard in months. At the elevator, I pressed the button and watched the silver doors reflect what stood there. A man in work boots, a jacket over his shoulder, eyes not asking for permission. No scowl, no victory grin. Just done. The doors slid open with a stainless sigh. I stepped in and the steel panels caught me again. Same man, same stance, clearer somehow in the cold metal light. For the first time in a long time, I recognized the shape looking back. I nodded to him, and the elevator carried us down. The lobby let me out into the evening like a soft push. Down the steps, across the sidewalk, past the last bush she'd fussed over. The lot opened wide, blacktop breathing heat, sodium lamps humming. My truck waited under a streetlight, paint dull, reliable as a handshake. I popped the lock, lifted the back seat, and slid the two duffels in, tools zipped tight, clothes folded honest. Papers where I'd left them, watch still ticking in my pocket like a pocket-sized promise. I sat behind the wheel, felt the seat know me, turned the key. The engine caught low and smooth, a sound I could trust. Hand on the shifter, I checked the mirrors by habit. In the rear view, the apartment entrance glowed like a stage. A figure filled the doorway, small at this distance, arms at her sides, the light making a halo she didn't earn. I let the idol settle. One breath, two, the kind a man takes before a long drive or a long life. The pull was there, history, habit, the cheap gravity of familiar walls. I set my jaw, dropped it in drive, and rolled. No gesture. No wave, no message to make the leaving easy. The truck eased off the line, tires quiet over warm tar. In the mirror, the doorway shrank to a shape, then a mark, then nothing. I didn't slow. I didn't look again. Red light. Long one. Cross traffic slid by like a river that didn't care. My phone buzzed against the console, mean little rattle over and over. I let it go twice, then glanced. Her name stacked down the screen like a verdict. You embarrassed me. Come back. We need to talk. Don't make this worse. Be mature, Jack. Answer me. I flipped the phone face down. The cab went quiet except for the idle and my breathing. Another buzz vibrated through the plastic. Another. Coward. You're ruining everything. You made me look stupid. We can fix this. Come home. I looked at the light, still red, and saw my face ghosted in the windshield. Calm, unimpressed, tired in a way you only get from lifting something that isn't yours too many times. I spoke to nobody, to the engine, to the space where noise used to live. You wanted calm, I said, steady as a line level. Here it is. The phone kept begging. I didn't. I let the words bounce in the cab and fall to the floor like loose change. The light flipped green. I rolled forward with the city's hum, hands easy on the wheel, pulse slow, jaw loose. Control isn't loud. It's the choice you don't explain. I turned right toward Dalton's place and let the river of cars take me along, untouched. Dalton was already outside when I pulled in, hip against his truck, boots crossed, bottle sweating in his hand. Shop shirt, grin he couldn't hide. I stepped out and shut the door with that solid Ford thud. We looked at each other a breath longer than normal. You really did it, he said. I nodded. Yeah. He jerked his chin toward the building. Room's ready. We didn't hug. We're not that kind of men. He grabbed a duffel, I grabbed the other, and we walked in step. The hallway smelled like laundry soap and old carpet, simple things that don't pretend. He unlocked the door, swung it open with a knuckle bump to the frame like a habit. Inside was small, clean, quiet. One bed with tight sheets, a dresser that had seen better paint, a lamp that clicked on with a respectable snap, window over the lot, sodium light turning the trucks to soft shapes. I set the bag down and heard the zipper teeth settle, neat and certain. Dalton handed me the extra key. Bathroom stocked, Wi-Fi passwords taped to the fridge. You hungry? Maybe later, I said. I just need a minute with the quiet. He nodded like he remembered his first minute too. I'll be next door. The door to the spare room swung inward and stopped against the rubber wedge on the baseboard. For the first time all day, a door opened and stayed open. Beer out of the fridge, cold enough to bite. I let the cap ping into the sink and sank into Dalton's couch. TV glow filled the room, Cowboys rerun, crowd noise like distant rain. I took a slow pull and felt my shoulders settle one notch lower, long breath out, the kind that empties a week. Dalton didn't push. He never did. He watched the screen, then me, like a man checking a pilot light. I stared past the game to a point where the noise thinned out and said it plain, voice level. Love can survive distance, I told him. It can't survive disrespect. He nodded once, heavy and sure, like a socket finding the nut. No sermon, no high five, just agreement that fit clean. The words sat in the room with us, simple, square, hard to knock over. I took another drink. The cold worked down to the heat I'd been hauling around all day. The window hummed with the lot outside, engines cooling, night birds trying their best. For a minute, we didn't need more than that. 2 men, 1 TV, a truth set on the coffee table like a tool you trust. My phone buzzed on the armrest. I let it. The game rolled to a timeout. I set the bottle down, felt the ring it left on the coaster, and knew the line I'd drawn would hold. I'd finally said it out loud, and nothing inside me argued. The buzz again, texts stacking like cards. Landon first, legendary. Then, she didn't see it coming. I could picture his grin, the head shake, the look that says a man finally did the math and quit paying in pride. Hector next. Got the clip. Whole room froze. Then another. You want it? I could almost hear the silence captured, music choking, forks stopped midair. Proof you don't need, but it's nice when the world heard it too. More pings. People are leaving. This is awkward. Is he serious? The party smell turns fast when truth walks in, perfume to vinegar in one breath. Someone wrote, Ryan left 5 minutes after you. Of course he did. Shine hates fluorescent lighting. Paige didn't text a speech, just take care of yourself. I read it twice, felt the weight of someone who chose observation over sides. There's a respect in that kind of quiet. Dalton raised his eyebrows at the phone going off like a slot machine. You need to answer? Nope. Guests peeling off, smiles dying on the curb, group chat inventing reasons. The same crowd that clapped for maturity couldn't stay for the cost of it. That's the thing about a spotlight. It shows the dust. I set the phone face down again. The Cowboys converted on 3rd and long. Dalton thumped the cushion once, satisfied. Out there, the room was bleeding guests. In here, a different kind of room finally felt full. Unknown number lit the screen. I knew the rhythm. 3 rings, pause, 3 more. I let it die, then blocked it. Another number. Same dance. Blocked that one too. The cab stayed quiet except for the hum of the AC and the small click my thumb made on the confirm button. Valves closing. Lines bled down to 0. Later an email. Apology braided with blame. I didn't mean to hurt you. You overreacted. This is what grown-ups do. You made me look small. Paragraphs that tried to be blankets and came off like nets. I read it once, top to bottom, no skim. The cursor hovered. I didn't reply. I didn't forward. I didn't save. Delete. Trash emptied. No echo. I sat still and listened to the kind of silence you only get after turning the right switches off in the right order. A neighbor's dog barked twice, stopped. Somewhere a freight train shouldered the night and moved on. My heartbeat came down to a pace I recognized. Phones can keep a war alive for years. One button at a time, I ended mine. No grand speech, no farewell letter, just clean edges where the mess used to be. When the screen finally went black, it stayed black. I set the phone face down and let my hands go quiet with it. Sleep found me early and didn't argue. Monday came with the smell of oil and dust and coffee that did its job. Shop lights hummed awake. The whiteboard wore a full day. Filters, leaks, no cool, no heat, a rooftop unit that had been whining all weekend. Hector caught my eye over a box of capacitors and gave a slow wink. No questions. Just the nod men use when the work's in front of you and the past is behind. I loaded the truck. Gauges, meter, coil cleaner, a roll of tape with teeth like a small animal. First call. A ranch house where the attic turns into an oven by 9. I crawled until the plywood sang, tested lines, replaced a relay the size of a matchbox, and brought the blower up smooth. Air started moving like it remembered how. The homeowner smiled without a story attached. That felt good. Next stop and the next. Screws in my palm like coins, sweat in my eyes, salt at the corners. Every fix clicked something back into place inside me. Predictable problems, honest tools, clear results. Turn, tighten, test. Repeat until the noise turns into a hum you can trust. Back at the shop, Hector slid a bottle of water across the bench. "Clockwork," he said. "Yep." The board still had work on it. So did I. Healing, it turns out, sounds a lot like a unit running right after a long stretch of wrong. But peace has its tests, and mine was about to buzz on the nightstand again. The ranch house at the end of a dusty road was breathing hot. The unit coughed at me like it had a grudge. Homeowner met me on the porch, hat in his hand, sweat at his collar. "She's blowing warm, Jack." I nodded, popped the panel, watched the gauges climb stupid. Pressure was wrong. The line set sang off key. I bled it down, balanced the numbers, swapped a tired contactor that looked like it had seen 2 wars, flipped the breaker. Wait. The fan took a second, then found itself. Air turned cool and honest, threading through the vents like it had been to church. The man's shoulders dropped an inch. He grinned the way folks grin when something simple works again. "Bless you," he said, like I'd done more than use a screwdriver. I packed the tools, wiped my hands, and took the folded bill he pressed into my palm. "For gas," he said, knowing we both meant more. Back in the truck, I let the cab cool me and watched the little strip of receipt curl in the cup holder. There's a peace in fixing what's in front of you. I can't tune someone else's respect. I can tune a system. I can set a line right, get the numbers where they belong, bring a room back from the edge, control the controllable, let the rest go. Night met me at the apartment with quiet that didn't ask questions. I cracked the window. The lot hummed low. I spread a drop cloth and rolled a pale yellow over the old walls, 2 coats to bury what used to live here. The room brightened like it remembered its own name. Paint smell, clean and new, settled into the corners. I hung a baseball poster. 96, a year that still feels like a radio in summer. Tacked it square, sat with it a minute. The second-hand sofa gave under me, honest and a little lopsided, the kind of seat that doesn't pretend you're not tired. I ran a hand over the arm, felt the nicks tell small truths. The kettle clicked on the hot plate and began its small sermon. Steam rose. I poured into a chipped mug I bought for $1, watched it fog the new paint in a soft bloom. No candles. No show. Just a room I could hear myself in. I slid the grandfather's watch from my pocket and set it on the shelf I'd screwed to the studs. Tick steady, a quiet metronome for whatever comes next. The phone lay dark on the counter. It could stay that way. This isn't fancy. It's mine. A door that locks. A wall I chose. A chair that keeps my shape. Sometimes rebuilding a man looks like fixing a room until it holds him. The messages started after dark, names I knew writing numbers I didn't. She misses you. Then, you were cruel. Then, at least talk to her. I let the bubbles stack and fade. No reply. The room held steady around me. The yellow walls I painted, the shelf I hung, the watch ticking like a small engine that never quits. I stood in the doorway and let the night frame me. The lot hummed. Far off, Dallas glowed. Slow heartbeat of red taillights and blue TV flicker, the city doing what it always does, moving on. I breathed like a man fitting a gasket, even and sure. Another text. Be mature. Give her closure. That was the word again, dressed up and sent to fetch me. I put the phone on the counter and watched it go still. The kettle clicked. I poured, sipped, tasted heat and quiet. There's a difference between mercy and surrender, between love and leverage. I said it to the doorway, to the dark, to anyone who wanted a statement they could twist. I don't play a game I never signed up for. The city blinked, my hands unclenched. The messages kept trying to stitch a net out of guilt and memory. I let them fall. Some doors you close to sleep, some you close to live. Saturday ball with the guys felt like remembering my own name. Dust rose off the infield, the kind that tastes like summer and old radio songs. I set my cap, dropped into the pocket at first, and let the chatter run past me. Easy trash talk, the score, nothing high-minded. A grounder came hot. I snagged it clean. Next batter sent a line that tailed late. I leaned, glove wide, and heard that smack you only get when leather speaks true. Landon jogged over between innings and popped my shoulder with a knuckle. "There he is," he said, grin loud. I nodded, breathing through my nose, lungs opening like windows. No buzz in my pocket, no reflex reach. The phone sat zipped in my bag, and I didn't care who wanted what on the other end. Texas sun laid its hand on everybody. Sweat cut tracks at the temples. Men drank water like it owed them. I watched a pop fly climb into the blue, called it early, and took it standing still. Feet under me. Head quiet. The field made sense. Ball, glove, throw. No hidden rules. No secret pasts. We won by a run nobody argued over. I wiped dust from my palms and felt present in every finger. The world narrowed to what I could catch, hold, and send where it needed to go. Out past the loop, the land turned to stone and scrub. The trail was a red line cut into the hillside, dust soft as flour under my boots. Cedar hung in the air, green and sharp, the kind of clean that clears a man out. Wind came over the ridge and slapped my shirt flat against my back, then let it billow like a sail. I climbed steady, thighs hot, hat pulled low, salt drying white at the edge of my sleeves. Every step loosened something I'd packed too tight. Breath in the nose, out the mouth. Gravel crunching like a metronome I could trust. A hawk drew a slow circle over me. Quiet, judge, no verdict. I touched the limestone, felt heat stored from a mean sun, and thought about how rock takes it, holds it, gives it back at its own pace. No rush, no apology. Up high, the city shrank to a smudge. Roads hissed faint in the distance like someone else's radio. I stood there with sweat in my eyes and didn't wipe it. Let it sting, let it clear. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of small, honest sounds. Wind in grass, a zipper tooth ticking, my heart landing strong. I came up here alone and felt something pull loose. Lonely turning into space, space turning into freedom. I didn't miss anything that depended on me being smaller. Saturday morning market, the kind with card tables and old stories. I found a scarred plank shelf under a stack of picture frames. Oak, thick, stained by other lives. $10 and a nod. The man said, "Heavy," like a warning. I said, "Good," and slid it into the truck. Back home, I clamped it to 2 chairs and worked it like a stubborn thought. Sandpaper found the high spots. Dust lifted in pale curls, settled on my forearms like flour on a baker. The grain woke up under my hand, lines that ran straight through, no pretending, no veneer. I wiped it clean, marked the studs, and drove the screws until the board pulled flush to the wall and stayed. The room changed a shade just because something solid took root. I stood back, listened to the quiet thrum of things holding. From my pocket I took my grandfather's watch, the one that ticks like a calm heart in a loud room. I set it center shelf. The sound carried a few inches into the air. Tick, tick, steady as a man keeping his word. I added nothing else. Let the wood and the watch talk. Old time meeting new walls, both of them chosen. Not expensive, not curated, just true. In that small click of gears, I heard 2 men across years agree on something simple. Build what lasts, keep what fits, leave the rest. I ran into Paige at a coffee place off Maple. No makeup big talk, just a to-go line and a bell that stuck on the door. She spotted me first, lifted her cup like a wave, and we found a corner that didn't need polishing. She didn't circle. After you left, the air went thin. People bailed. Ryan stood there with those bottles like he'd brought a bad omen. He told someone later he felt used, said she dragged him in to prove a point. Paige took a sip. He's not talking to her. I let that settle. She went on. She's with her folks for now, said the apartment felt haunted. Paige's eyes didn't blink much. Truth has a way of rattling picture frames. We sat with the grinder noise and milk steam filling the spaces where gossip usually fits. She finally asked the only question that mattered. You okay, Jack? I watched heat move off my coffee and answered plain. Okay, I said, because I chose respect. Paige nodded like a verdict she could live with. No applause, no smile, just a small, solid yes. We tossed cups. She squeezed my forearm once, human and brief. Outside, traffic braided and the day went on being a day. I walked to my truck with a quiet that didn't ask for permission and didn't offer apologies. On the drive back, old lines tried to climb out of the vents. The inside joke they kept like a pet. Phrases that skipped past me and landed soft between them. 2 bottles, like old times. A tune in a store that had choreography I didn't know. That's how a ghost keeps a chair. Then the labels. Insecure, projecting, control issues. The therapy words she carried like a badge, pinning them on me when the room needed a villain. I wore them for a while because quiet is a habit, and men get good at hauling weight that isn't theirs. I pictured each word stuck to my forehead in her tidy handwriting. I remembered the way I'd go still, let it pass, call it keeping the peace. Truth? That wasn't peace. That was me paying the toll for a bridge she kept burning. At a light, I pulled down the visor and looked straight at myself, sweat salt at the temples, eyes clear. I said it out loud so the cab could hear and the old stories would have to move. No more labels. I peeled them off, one by one in my head, like cheap stickers that leave a film if you rush. Slow, clean, final. The visor snapped up. The truck rolled on. And for the first time in a long time, my face belonged only to me. Her name slid into my inbox like it knew the code. Subject line dressed in manners. Let's close this gracefully. The body was longer. Soft words, tidy logic, sentences folding over themselves to make a cushion. We owe it to what we had. Let's have one last conversation. For closure. For mature people. I set my fingers on the keys and typed one line. It closed when I walked out the door. I read it once. It looked right. It felt true. Then I highlighted the sentence and watched the letters turn blue, waiting on a decision they weren't going to get. Backspace. Gone. I clicked the trash can. The message fell without a sound. Then I emptied the bin, the way you clear a condensate line. Slow, complete, no drips left to grow mold. The screen went blank. I set the lid down and pressed power until the small light gave up. Silence filled the room in clean layers. No victory, no speech, just the kind of quiet that doesn't ask for an audience. The window showed a slice of Dallas sky, dull and steady. Somewhere a neighbor's TV laughed for me. I leaned back, let my shoulders drop, and heard my own breath. Unremarkable, accurate, mine. Some things end with words. The ones that matter end with none. I slept early and woke hungry. When you finally delete the noise, the world starts talking back in peace. Morning put me on a big site, warehouse size, rooftop units lined up like trucks at attention. The lift whined, the sun hit hard, and the metal gave back everything it took. Boss met me at the ladder, thumb toward the horizon. You keep this schedule, there's a bonus coming. I nodded, clipped in, got to it. Panels off, belts checked, coils rinsed until the brown ran clear. I traced a low-voltage gremlin to a cracked connector and swapped it like a bad tooth. Gauges settled where they should, steady needles telling the truth. I brought one unit up, then another, until the roof breathed a colder kind of wind. Calls kept stacking. I kept saying yes. Overtime isn't a monster when the work is clean. Lunch in the cab, receipts in the visor, sweat drying white on a dark shirt. My banking app showed numbers that didn't flinch. Rent, squared, savings, honest. Options, finally. On the way back, traffic bowed and surged. I sat in it with the radio low and a grin I didn't need to explain. Small, private, earned. Not gloating. Alignment. Freedom doesn't start with speeches. It starts with bills paid, a truck that fires first turn, a man who knows his tools and his limits. At a light, I tapped the steering wheel and caught my reflection. Tired, yes, but lighter. I rolled forward and felt the day move the way a good unit runs. Quiet, efficient, under control. Dallas rain came hard and honest, drumming the tin awning like a steady hand on a table. I cracked the window and let the smell of wet dust and asphalt roll in. The room took the weather well. I filled the kettle, watched the red light glow, poured coffee black into a chipped mug that fit my palm like an old glove. I pulled a history book from the shelf. War years, maps that tell the truth, men trying to hold lines that wouldn't. Paper has a smell when it's been kept right, linen and ink and time. The pages whispered as they turned, calm as a good unit settling after a long cycle. Outside, rain stitched the city together. Inside, my heart matched a quieter beat. I read a paragraph twice, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. The words landed clean. No subtext, no tests. I sipped, breathed, listened to the roof talk. The clock on the stove ticked the kind of minutes you don't have to chase. A storm like that clears a man out. It washes the edges, leaves what's solid standing. I set the book down, closed my eyes, and felt the day empty from my shoulders. I didn't miss the noise. I didn't need the crowd. I was back with myself, and for once, it was enough. Dalton texted 2 words: pool night. 10 minutes later, we were in a bar that smelled like wood and time. Dark panels, neon humming, country low on the speakers, the kind of place where men keep their voices and their promises. He racked the balls tight. I chalked the cue and felt sawdust memory in the blue. "Break it," he said. I leaned in and split the triangle. The crack carried clean across the room. Stripes scattered, a solid dropped, the cue ball rolled back to center like it had a plan. We took our time. Cold beer, short talk, shots that kissed rails and minded angles. Dalton watched me line one up across the long side. Quiet breath, straight arm, simple follow. The 8 didn't fall, didn't need to. He grinned anyway, a quick flash. "You're different," he said. "Lighter," I answered, setting the cue on felt. "Because I dropped the load." We didn't preach it. We played it. He nodded toward the next rack. I tapped the table twice with my ring and circled, feeling where the weight used to sit and noticing the empty space it left behind. The room felt easy. No tight chest. No secondhand worry. Outside, rain had rinsed the lot clean. Inside, I took the next shot and heard leather talk to leather. Some nights don't fix you. They just remind you you're already fixed. The last unknown number showed up close to midnight, blue light cutting a thin line across the room. I let it buzz once, twice. Stopped the urge to answer like you stop a bad habit mid-reach. I gave it 3 seconds, long enough to prove I could, short enough not to care. I opened the thread. A paragraph waited, dressed like peace and wired like guilt. "We should talk. For closure. I'm hurting. Be mature. Same bait, new hook." I read every word so none of them could haunt me later. Delete. Another ding, the backup attempt. I hit block and watched the name vanish into a plain number, then into nothing. The room took a breath with me. Quiet expanded to the corners like paint drying. I walked to the shelf, set my palm on the old oak I'd mounted, and listened to the watch tick, a small metronome that never asks for attention. That sound was enough. Phone face down, speaker on. I scrolled to a song that feels like highway and set it loud. Guitar low, drums honest, a voice that doesn't apologize for getting free. The walls carried it easy. No neighbors complained. Some strings you cut once and they fray. Some you cut clean and they're gone. This was clean. No grief, no aftertaste. I turned the volume up a notch and let the night know where I stood. Dawn came in pale and decent, the kind that doesn't brag. I stood in the bathroom and watched the mirror fog, then clear. Razor ran smooth, no rush, no nicks, just tidy lines. I rinsed, wiped, and saw a face that looked returned, not remade. T-shirt fresh off the stack, cotton that still holds its square, jeans that earned their fade. I laced my boots tight, double knotted, the way my dad did before a day that mattered. The apartment smelled like coffee from last night and new paint that finally stopped shouting. I cracked the window. Morning air threaded through, cool and simple. On the shelf, my grandfather's watch kept time with a steady, stubborn patience. Tick by tick, it agreed with me. I lifted my keys from the dish, metal on ceramic, that small, honest clink. It sounded like a door you trust closing the right way. In the mirror by the door, I checked once. Eyes clear, jaw easy, no performance. Just a man I wouldn't mind working beside all day. For the first time in a long while, respect didn't feel like something I had to bargain for. It was already there, looking back. Keys in pocket, wallet, phone, silent because I said so. I locked up, felt the deadbolt seat, and smiled at how final that little turn can be. The hallway was bright. The day had weight. I was ready to carry only mine. I've learned a few things the hard way, and they fit in one breath. Love can survive distance, I say, steady. It can't survive disrespect. That's the line. That's the measure. Not how loud you argue, not how long you stay. Respect or nothing. I carried the noise for too long and called it peace. It wasn't. It was a bill with interest. Silence isn't weakness. It's a verdict. I chose it when the room wanted a show. I chose it at the door, with the envelope and the keys laid square. I chose it when the phone begged. Silence wasn't running. It was drawing a clean edge where a man stands. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm prioritizing myself. That's not cruelty. That's adulthood. You can love someone and still refuse to teach them you'll tolerate less than basic respect. You can walk away without hate and keep your name intact. So here's where we land. Dignity over comfort. Every time. It costs you the party. It buys you the person you have to live with. If this hits you where it lives, you already know your answer. What do you choose? Peace or party? Say it out loud. Drop it in the comments. Type, peace. If you're reclaiming your line, party if you're still deciding. Hit subscribe and stick around. There's more to this road than one door closing, and I'll walk you through every mile I earned back.